While holding office as Attorney General, Warren Kenneth Paxton used, misused, or failed to use his official powers in a manner calculated to subvert the lawful operation of the government of the state of Texas and obstruct the fair and impartial administration of justice, thereby bringing the office of Attorney General into scandal and disrepute to the prejudice of public confidence in the government of this state, as shown by the acts described in one or more articles.
Attorney General Paxton, how do you plead? Your Honor, the Attorney General is innocent and we plead not guilty.
For the first time in nearly 50 years, the Texas State Senate has transformed into a courtroom of impeachment for now suspended Attorney General Ken Paxton. Now he's facing some serious charges, 16 in fact, including bribery, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and abuse of the public's trust. Now, the state house has already impeached him overwhelmingly. I'll get to those numbers in just a moment. But Paxton has been under federal investigation since October of 2020, when multiple of his top handpicked lieutenants went to the FBI with allegations of bribery and other potential crimes. In fact, here are some more details on those charges.
He put the interest of himself above the laws of the state of Texas.
Lawmakers began investigating Paxton back in March after he asked for $3.3 million in taxpayer money to settle a whistleblower lawsuit filed by staffers whom Paxton fired after they went to the FBI with their corruption allegations. The 20 articles of impeachment include charges of not only misappropriation of public resources, but also bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy.
Now, as you saw in the opening clip, Ken Paxton has pleaded not guilty to these allegations, to these charges. However, it is worth getting into the specifics of what he is accused of, not by progressives, not by Democrats, but by his own Republican colleagues, including Republican members of the state house, including his handpicked lieutenants, who by no means are progressives and are certainly individuals that he handpicked because of similar ideological opinions. But nonetheless, at the center of Paxton's impeachment is a real estate developer who the Embattled AG actually helped to fend off an FBI investigation. And there was some trading taking place here, a favor for a favor, if you will. So Paxton is accused of using his office to benefit the Austin real estate developer Nate Paul, who donated $25,000 to his campaign and, according to the articles of impeachment, paid for his home renovations and helped him engage in an extramarital affair. So, I love seeing these examples of these conservative men, the party, the bastion of family values, just consistently cheating on their wives and getting caught doing it. But nonetheless, here are more on the accusations against Paxton, who has already been impeached by the state house.
Break down what the key takeaways are for you, and also this relationship between Paxton and the businessman Nate Paul, if you would.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, the crux of this impeachment trial is about the relationship between Attorney General Paxton and Nate Paul, a real estate investor here in Austin. Essentially, the House managers are alleging that Paxton repeatedly abused his office to help Mr. Paul, essentially letting Paul use the powers of the Attorney General by influencing an outside counsel that Paxton had hired without telling the rest of his staff, and use that outside lawyer to go after the enemies of Nate Paul, including police who had raided his house, including business rivals, including people he was involved in lawsuits with.
My, certainly sounds like he misused his office to help a guy who, was facing investigation for some serious crimes. But in return, he got all sorts of favors, including the ability to see his mistress, and it was all set up. And he was aided and abetted by Nate Paul in that regard. Now, as I mentioned, he was already impeached by the state house. Now, if you're curious what the numbers were, they impeached him 121-23 in a vote just this past May. One of those Republican lawmakers is Republican State Representative Andrew Murr, who actually provided some of the opening testimony in Ken Paxton's trial. Now, I think it's worth listening to some of what he had to say about Paxton's relationship with Nate Paul. Let's watch.
The allegations in the articles reveal that the state's top lawyer engaged in conduct designed to advance the economic interests and legal positions of a friend and donor to the detriment of innocent Texans. Mr. Paxton turned the keys of the Office of Attorney General over to Nate Paul so that Mr. Paul could use the awesome power of the People's Law Firm to punish and harass perceived enemies. I was raised in rural Texas, where a person's honor is more important than money, where integrity matters, by a family deeply affected by political corruption. This is precisely the type of grave official wrong that our Texas Supreme Court has said warrants impeachment.
That was a Republican state lawmaker. Now, let's get into some further details about Paxton's relationship with Nate Paul. So documents filed by the House impeachment manager state that Paul hired Paxton's reported mistress at his Austin firm so Paxton could see her more easily rather than traveling to San Antonio where she once lived. He's also accused of using a fake Uber account so he could visit his mistress. And he also allegedly used burner phones and secret personal email accounts as well. So Uber records reflect drivers picked up Paxton under the alias of Dave P, a block from his home, and ferried him to his lover's or Paul's properties more than a dozen times from August 6th of 2020 until October 2nd of 2020. I should note that the courtroom has been pretty empty for the proceedings, the trial of Paxton. But there is one person in the courtroom who's calling any Republican who's working against Paxton a rhino, and that's his wife. The same wife he cheated on with the help of Nate Paul. Sad. But nonetheless, there's more. According to a court filing, Paxton and Paul would often eat together and talk about Paul's desire to see the FBI's sealed search warrant affidavit for Paul's properties. On one occasion, when Paul expressed his desire to see the FBI search warrant affidavit, Paxton suggested that Paul try to open a records request. The significance is that Paxton's office would control the answer regarding whether Paul got the records. And Paxton morphed the office of the Attorney General into Paul's concierge law firm, the filing says. And guess what? That's not all Paxton is accused of. There's a lot more to get to. The Nate Paul relationship is just one piece of the puzzle, although I will admit it's probably the biggest issue, aside from the misuse of funds. So, the individuals who have essentially served as whistleblowers, his handpicked lieutenants who served as whistleblowers against him, and the Republican lawmakers who voted to impeach him essentially argue that he had reveled in the perks that came along with his powerful office. Last year, Paxton's travels were extensive. Records show that after winning a Republican primary runoff against George P. Bush, Paxton spent 2 months flying to cities in the Caribbean and Europe. It's unclear who paid for Paxton's travel, but the trips cost taxpayers a combined $91,000 specifically for his security detail. By the way, the purpose of the trip, totally unclear. Although, I mean, this is speculation. I'm gonna speculate he went to the Caribbean and Europe for a good time. Like I would venture to say it wasn't for official business. I could be wrong, I'm speculating here. Nonetheless, there's more detail. Last year, Paxton's lifestyle included more international trips than Texas's governor and lieutenant governor made combined, and a previously unreported visit to Qatar to watch the World Cup. There are also accusations of behavior that raised eyebrows among employees at all levels of Paxton's office, including requesting special license plates, but never paying the $12.50 to acquire them. I mean, homeboy's super petty, right? He refused to share like a coconut dusted cake that the office gets every year for the holidays with his staff. Like the staff had grown accustomed to that. He just took the cake home for himself. Like that's the kind of guy he is. David Maxwell, the Attorney General's former head of law enforcement and one of 8 deputies who reported him to the FBI, told investigators that Paxton once bought a $600 sports coat from a hotel store. Like who does that? From a hotel store while at a conference and then billed it to the event's organizer. Like, you're not supposed to do an expense report and have like taxpayers fund your $600 sports coat from a hotel lobby. That's not what taxpayer money is supposed to be utilized for. But nonetheless, I shouldn't just have you guys hear what I have to say, someone who admittedly is on the left, right? Let's hear from Republican State Representative Murr again, because this time he specifically addresses the misuse of the AG's office for personal enrichment.
Earlier this year, Mr. Paxton came to the legislature seeking $3.3 million in taxpayer money to settle a whistleblower lawsuit. Mr. Paxton would not answer any questions about the underlying claims. He had successfully blocked any discovery in the case for almost 2 years, and he refused to justify the settlement. The House investigated the serious allegations raised by the whistleblowers. The House uncovered egregious misconduct and abuse of office by the Attorney General of the state of Texas and voted overwhelmingly to prefer articles of impeachment to the Senate. This is why we are here.
And I just want to stop for a moment and give those Republican lawmakers in the state of Texas, I never thought I would say this, a lot of credit in this very specific instance. Because what I think a lot of us have grown accustomed to is watching members of the same party provide cover for one another, even when there's bad behavior involved, even when there's alleged criminality involved. But in this particular case, having to do with suspended Attorney General Ken Paxton, you have statewide lawmakers, Republicans specifically, who are willing to hold him accountable, and they deserve credit for that. It would be a far better country, if you ask me, if we were all willing to do that. When we see anyone engaging in bad behavior, including people who might be our friends, including people who might have the same ideological views as us, especially when it comes to individuals who are supposed to be public servants. Using a public servant role to enrich yourself is wrong. It was certainly wrong when Trump did it as president of the United States to essentially funnel taxpayer money to his own personal businesses. It's certainly wrong in this particular case where you have Ken Paxton using his office to engage in all sorts of bad behavior, misuse of funds, carrying out an affair with someone with the help of an individual who he was looking out for as he was facing investigations from the FBI. So again, just want to give the Republican lawmakers credit for what they did here in the case of Ken Paxton. So what happens now? Well, a few other updates I want to share with you. His lawyers, Ken Paxton's lawyers, put forth a series of unsuccessful motions to dismiss the case. All but one failed by a vote of more than 2/3 of the senators present, so that's good. Now, where did he win? Well, Paxton's lawyers did succeed in one key motion, preventing their client from being compelled to testify. So the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who is acting as a judge in the impeachment trial, ruled that Paxton could not be forced to testify. But other than that, the motions to dismiss the case, all of that stuff, did not really stand, didn't work, and this trial will continue. And so we'll give you all updates as we learn more, but things are not looking good for Ken Paxton. You know you're in a lot of trouble when your own party turns against you to the extent that lawmakers in the state of Texas have turned against Ken Paxton.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.